Hello guys! In this video, you'll learn how to read data from MS SQL Server Database and push to Salesforce. Introduction. In this video, we'll show you how to connect to a SQL Server database and send data from SQL Server to Salesforce using the SKYVVA agent. We'll demonstrate the complete process, from configuring the database connection and interface to mapping, processing, and verifying the results in Salesforce. Query and retrieve. During the query and retrieve process, the SKYVVA agent executes the configured SQL query against the SQL Server database and retrieves the required records. The retrieved data is then passed to SKYVVA for mapping, validation, and further processing. Once processing is completed successfully, the data is sent to the target Salesforce object. Transform and map. The SKYVVA mapping engine transforms the source data from SQL Server database columns into the corresponding Salesforce fields. During this process, it applies the configured mapping rules, performs data validation, and handles any required data transformations to ensure the data is correctly prepared before being sent to the target Salesforce object. Sync to Salesforce. Once the data has been transformed and validated, the records are sent to Salesforce using the configured operation. Depending on your integration requirements, SKYVVA can insert new records, upsert records, update existing records, or delete records in Salesforce. Prerequisites. Before starting the processing, you should understand how to create and configure the required SKYVVA components, including integration, connection destination, database adapter, metadata provider, repository, message type, and interface. These components have already been explained in separate videos on our YouTube channel. If you need more information about how to configure them, please check out those videos first. Once all the prerequisites are completed, you can start configuring the processing. Based on your integration requirements, you can select the appropriate operation, such as insert, upsert, update, or delete, and then continue with the mapping and processing configuration. Now, let's start. Now, let's take a look at the database adapter we'll be using in this video. Here, you can see that we have an inbound database adapter connected to a SQL Server database. You can also see the SQL Server database properties configured for this adapter. After verifying that the adapter and connection settings are correct, click Save. Now go see the interface configuration. For the first case, let's look at the interface we'll use to insert records. As you can see, this is an inbound interface configured with the insert operation. We use this interface to insert records from the database into Salesforce. You can also see that this interface is already linked to the inbound hierarchical database message type and the inbound database adapter that we showed earlier. Now click on Open Mapping to see the mapping. Here, you can see that we've already completed the mapping. We mapped the fields from the SQL Server database tables to the corresponding Salesforce objects, such as account and contact. For the insert operation, we mapped the required fields one by one. We don't need to configure an external ID because we're creating new records. However, for hierarchical data, we need to define the foreign keys so SKYVVA can maintain the relationship between the parent and child records, such as account and contact. Click the Save button. We use the insert operation when we want to create new records in Salesforce from the source database. Insert is suitable when the incoming data represents new records that do not already exist in Salesforce. Unlike upsert or update, insert does not require an external ID to find an existing record because the purpose is to create a new record. For hierarchical data, such as an account with related contacts, we define the foreign key in the mapping so SKYVVA can maintain the relationship between the parent and child records during processing. After successful processing, new account and contact records are created in Salesforce with the correct relationship. Before we start the processing, let's take a look at the database tables and the source data we'll use for this demonstration. Here, you can see the SQL Server database that we'll use as the source for this demonstration. We have two related tables, accounts and contacts. The accounts table is the parent table and the contacts table is the child table. In the accounts table, We have 5 account records with information such as account ID, account name, account number, billing city, and billing country. In the contacts table, we also have 5 contact records. Each contact contains an account ID, which is used as the foreign key to link the contact to its corresponding account. For example, contact C001 has account ID A001, so this contact belongs to account A001. This relationship allows us to represent the data as a hierarchical structure. In the next step, we'll process this source data through the SKYVVA interface using the insert operation and verify that the account and contact records are created correctly in Salesforce. Now, let's go to the Agent Control Board screen. We can process the interface manually using the Interface Processing button, or use the Scheduler processing based on your requirements. For this demonstration, we'll process the interface manually using the Interface Processing button. Select the interface. Click the Interface Processing button. Click Push. Once the processing is completed successfully, SKYVVA inserts the source data from the SQL Server Database into Salesforce. In this example, the account records are created first, followed by their related contact records. SKYVVA uses the configured mapping and foreign key to maintain the correct parent-child relationship between each account and its contacts. Now, let's go to Salesforce and verify that the records have been inserted successfully and that the relationships are correct.
See?
All 5 account records have been inserted and created successfully in Salesforce, as expected. Now, let's look at the contacts.
See?
The contact records have also been created successfully in Salesforce. Now go to the SKYVVA Message Monitor. Here, you can see that 5 messages were created from the processing, and each message has the status completed. We can also see the related account and contact messages, and also see the message comment insertion of account and insertion of contact. This confirms that the hierarchical data was processed successfully. Next, we'll move on to the second case and demonstrate the Upsert operation. This is the interface that we use with the Upsert operation to upsert records from the database into Salesforce. We link this interface to the same database message and database adapter used in the first case. Now, let's go to the mapping section and review the mapping configuration. Here, you can see that we've already completed the mapping from the SQL Server Database tables to the Salesforce account and contact objects. For the Upsert operation, we need to define an external ID. SKYVVA uses the external ID to check whether a matching record already exists in Salesforce. If a matching record exists, SKYVVA updates it. If no matching record exists, SKYVVA inserts a new record.
Click Save.
Now, let's start the processing. Once the processing is completed successfully, SKYVVA uses the external ID to check for matching records in Salesforce. If a matching record exists, it is updated. If no matching record exists, a new record is created. In this case, we already know that the records exist in Salesforce. So, when we start the Upsert processing, we expect SKYVVA to find the existing records using the external ID and update them instead of creating new records. Now go to the Message Monitor tab. Here, you can see that 5 Upsert messages were created and completed successfully. When we expand the message, we can see the account and contact were modified successfully, confirming that the existing records were updated as expected. Next, we'll move on to the third case and demonstrate the update operation. This is the interface that we use with the update operation to update existing records in Salesforce. We use the update operation when we want to modify records that already exist in Salesforce. SKYVVA uses the configured matching criteria to find the existing records and then updates them with the latest data from the database. Unlike Upsert, the update operation only updates existing records and does not create a new record when no matching record is found. Now go to see the mapping. For the update operation, we define the external ID so SKYVVA can find the existing records in Salesforce that need to be updated. We also define the foreign key to maintain the relationship between the account and contact records. Once the mapping is configured correctly, click Save. Let's start the processing. Once the processing is completed successfully, SKYVVA finds the existing records in Salesforce using the external ID and updates them with the latest data from the database. Since this is an update operation, we expect the existing account and contact records to be updated without creating new records. Now, let's go to Salesforce and check the result. Here, you can see that we already have 5 existing account and contact records in Salesforce. In this case, we'll use the update operation to update these existing records with the latest data from the database. You can see that the existing records have been updated successfully, as expected. Go to the SKYVVA message monitor. Here, you can see that 5 update messages were created and completed successfully. When we expand the message, we can see that both the account and contact records were updated successfully, as expected. Next, we'll move on to the 4th case and demonstrate the delete operation. This is the interface that we use with the delete operation to delete records from Salesforce. In this case, we'll demonstrate the delete operation using a flat database table. We use the delete operation when we want to remove existing records from Salesforce based on the data from the source database. SKYVVA identifies the existing Salesforce records using the configured external ID and deletes the matching records. In this case, we'll demonstrate the delete operation using a flat database table. Go to see the mapping. You can see we map only one level. For the delete operation, we define the external ID so SKYVVA can identify the existing account record that needs to be deleted. Once the mapping and external ID are configured correctly, click Save. Now, let's start the processing. Once the processing is completed successfully, SKYVVA uses the external ID to find the matching account records in Salesforce and deletes them. Now, let's go to Salesforce.
See?
The record has been deleted successfully from Salesforce, as expected. Now go to the message monitor. Here, you can see that 5 delete messages were created and completed successfully. When we expand the message, we can see the account deletion message, confirming that the record was deleted successfully from Salesforce. Now, we've completed all 4 cases: insert, upsert, update, and delete. We've seen how each operation processes data from the SQL Server Database to Salesforce, and how SKYVVA handles each operation based on the interface configuration and mapping. Let's summarize what we demonstrated in this video. First, we configured the required components and established the SQL Server Database connection through the SKYVVA agent. Next, we configured the interface and mapped the SQL Server columns to the corresponding Salesforce fields. We then selected the required database operation and started the processing. SKYVVA queried the source records, applied the configured mapping and transformations, and sent the processed data to Salesforce. Finally, we verified the processing results and confirmed that the records were successfully created or updated in the target Salesforce object. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.